My wife took a trip to Mexico for a bachelorette party, but she hasn't spent any money all week, and now I'm wondering if she took a trip to Pound Town instead and has been spending all her time in another man's pants. I am in the middle of probably the biggest crisis of my adult life and I can barely think, so I apologize in advance if this comes across as really weird or rambly. My wife went to Mexico last week for a friend's bachelorette party, and aside for the plane ticket, the hotel and the first day's food and drinks, she didn't spend a penny all week. I mean, on the credit card it's as clear as day that on Monday up until about 9 p.m. she was buying dinner, stuff at the hotel shop, drinks at the bar, souvenirs, and then at 9 p.m. she didn't spend another cent the entire week until she was at her layover airport in Dallas. She says it's because her friend took over and paid for everything. I guess this is plausible, but it still is giving me a funny feeling. What is worse is that my wife is a person who posts her entire life on Instagram, on TikTok, mostly Instagram, but if she does anything from get a latte to picking the kids up at school, she will post it either as a picture or as a story. The last thing she posted on TikTok was that trend of people jumping into their vacation from the airport, and after that her social media is blank. I was kind of keeping an eye on it because I was excited for her to go on the trip, and again I guess it's plausible, but it gives me a funny feeling. When she got home I said I can't wait to see all the pics she took, and she really blew me off and said that she just didn't feel like taking pics that week. She has also been incredibly distant, and last night she said she just felt like sleeping on the couch because the AC hits better. This is 100% true, but I swear I heard her talking on the phone in the middle of the night. When I got up to check on her I accidentally tripped over the dog and made a huge racket, so when I got downstairs she appeared to be asleep. I brought all of this up this morning and said I'm not accusing her of anything, but all this put together is making me feel uneasy. I wasn't trying to bait her or fight with her, just get my feelings on the table. She said you were a major fudging jerk for bringing this up on her first day back at work. I said I wasn't trying to pry, just communicating with her, and she said your communication is prying and I am not discussing this with you ever again. She then took the kids to summer camp and left. Am I the jerk here? Update 1. So I realized that her text probably synced to her iPad, so I just checked. It took me a while to figure out the passcode, but I did. But there was a message at 9:15 the night she got to the resort from a number with no contact info that said, "Okay, I'll meet you in the lobby." Is the app you said Signal? I looked up Signal and it's kind of like WhatsApp. The iPad doesn't have Signal on it. If you have been following my comments, you've seen that my sister is coming over and she's an insane internet sleuth and is relentless when it comes to this cheating stuff. She also scares me a bit, so I'm hoping this isn't a mistake. I'm going to probably stop responding for a while so we can talk and she can do her thing. I am numb, but she can do this. Thanks for everyone and the nice comments and the reality check, it's not looking good. Edit, she cheated. My sister was able to get lots of info from the real estate guy and my wife denied it at first but then admitted it. Soru, it took so long to update, but I'm numb. Have literally zero idea what to do now. I know people really want updates and we've been talking, arguing, screaming, threatening all day long. I'm more confused than I was this morning, that's for sure. But I'm also confused, exhausted, sad, upset, nervous, and I don't know what to do. I did make a preliminary appointment with a family law attorney tomorrow to talk about protecting assets and how to navigate the legal way ahead regardless of what I chose to do. I will say that there's S subreddit that this was cross-posted to, and it may be the most toxic group of people I've ever seen online, and I feel really bad for those people. As for the privacy issues, no one has figured out who we are. That's not a challenge, by the way. I'm very tired and I doubt people are still invested, but if there's still interest I can update either on this post or a new in a few days. I'm really hoping to sleep tonight. My sister still has the kids and they are having a blast and went to the lake with her boyfriend's family today, so I'm glad they are in good hands. Update 2. 1 week later. Good morning everyone. I know it's been a while, but as I'm sure you can imagine, this has been the worst week of my life and it's been an absolute whirlwind of activity trying to get things set up in a life that I don't even really recognize anymore. First of all, I am now in the process of getting a legal separation from my wife with the aim of getting divorced. She and I both want to take the process very slow so it's fair to everyone. I do have a personal lawyer who is handling the separation, but even she recommends that it will be cheaper and easier for us to do a mediated divorce. She, edit, the lawyer, not my wife, has a colleague who has this sort of package deal where we will work with a certified counselor while we are meeting with a mediation lawyer to handle the legal aspects. The goal is to learn to be co-parents and friendly while go through the breakup. I know my wife is hoping to see the counselor with the aim of reconciling. I am doing the counseling so I can learn how to treat her with some sort of respect as the mother of my kids for their benefit. I can't possibly see reconciling, but I guess stranger things have happened. Those of you who read along last week know that my sister is one of those internet sleuths who, if you tell her a first initial and someone's eye color, she can come up with a person's entire life history in a matter of minutes. I've pretty much let her handle all of the dirty work. She did some research on the guy and he's an absolute piece of stuff. He has judgments and liens against him all over the country. He has 6 kids with 4 different women and is delinquent on child support on most of them. It seems like his mo is to just wait until the kids turn 18 and hope they stop coming after him. And this is the guy my wife picked to ruin everything for. My sister did get in touch with his current wife and said that she has pics and text messages that prove he was cheating and so far has not heard back from her. Who knows what's going on with that? My assumption is it's happened so many times, she expects it and or tolerates it, but maybe we'll hear back from her. My wife and I are still in the house together until the separation is official, and we may continue to be even after the legal separation is done. I just don't know, and I figure as long as we can be friendly to each other then it's okay. I had to go away on business last week, and when I got back on Saturday it was pretty clear the fight in her was gone and she wanted to talk and accept full responsibility and was willing to come clean about the whole thing. I told her I really didn't need to hear any more because her affair partner had confessed the whole thing and even sent pics. I think her thing is that she's utterly humiliated and has been very quiet, even obsequious as her general manner around the house. It's not really what I want because I didn't get married to have a servant, and the change in her normal fiery and funny personality is only a reminder that something is really wrong. Kids are doing fine, they are spending a lot of time with my sister and her boyfriend and his family, so hopefully looking back this will just be the summer before their parents got divorced and are missing the turmoil in the house. I guess if there's questions I can try to answer them, but that's pretty much what's been going on.
Update 3. I would imagine a lot of you have seen the posts of a wife cheating while in Mexico that have somewhat blown up. At the risk of further being accused of being some very derogatory words, of being fake, or even of attempting to become cheating influencers, that's the most original I've seen so far. I'm going to give my side of the story. First of all, I want to say that I cheated. I will get into detail on that later, so Bubs, if you are reading this, a word of warning. I'm not making any excuses. I'm not asking for forgiveness from my husband or Reddit at large. I'm offering my perspective as to why it happened and maybe, just maybe, sleep after 5 days after getting this off my chest. I have read all of my husband's posts and every single one of the thousands of replies he's gotten over the past 2 weeks. I don't know if he knows this or not. We are in the house together, but aside from some logistical details about life, we haven't really spoken. He doesn't want to talk to me, and he certainly doesn't want to hear about my trip. That's totally fair. I say this because while we have some differing perspectives, nothing he has said has been untrue. Having said that, there are some things he has left out. I don't think nefariously, rather to protect our privacy, but I do think they are important. My husband does in fact work 3 jobs, not 2. He has a very well-paying management job for a multinational company, and he and my dad started a business during COVID that has blown up. But he is also a pilot in the military reserves. I'm going to leave it there for privacy reasons. His hard work has provided us a life that I couldn't have even imagined when I was younger, and I appreciate everything that he has done for our family. Last summer he deployed for several months, and I made him promise me that when he got back, we would talk about ways for him to cut back. I didn't know which of his jobs he cut back on, but his work schedule made me feel like a roommate, caretaker and babysitter, and I was very tired of it. The full conversation has never happened. Every time I brought it up, there's always been an excuse. He can't quit the corporate job because he would lose stock options. He can't quit the reserves because he loves flying too much. He can't quit working with my dad because that would be letting family down. On top of his jobs, he volunteers at every opportunity for our kids. Again, I love that he loves our kids, and he is an amazing father. Like I said, I've read every comment, and one was almost like you were standing in the room when we had this recent conversation. Your advice to my husband was so spot on. So, I had been completely ignored on the work issue, but 2 weeks before my trip I told him I really needed him to not coach swimming this year, that I had given up, for now, on the work discussion with please don't volunteer for 6 days a week at 5 a.m. days at the pool. He literally told me, hey, swim season isn't that long, maybe we can do Disney World in the fall. I have first world problems for sure, but I honestly felt like he had punched me right in the gut. I felt so utterly rejected. Having said all of that, I love him. I never planned on divorcing him, and even if he ignored my needs forever, I could muddle through being unhappy because he is a great guy, and I could never replace him. With that, when a friend of mine invited me to go to Mexico, and it really wasn't a bachelorette party, I felt like that might be just the thing to give me a break. On the day I was supposed to leave, I was officially on a vacation day. I work in admin and education, and got an email from Out District about a parent complaint that could not wait. There were several errands I was supposed to run, but I spent all that time on the phone and responding to emails. One of those errands was depositing a small check for my dad and my husband's business. I totally forgot it. When my husband got home to drive us to the airport, I could see how disappointed he was in me. He didn't yell at me, but he made several biting comments in front of my friends about how much extra work I'd caused him. I felt like I was being scolded by a parent. When we got to the terminal, I walked around to kiss him goodbye at the driver's side window. He acted like he didn't see me and drove off. I was devastated. I'd kissed him goodbye on hundreds of business trips, flights, reserve weekends and deployments, and the only time I'd ever gone away on my own, he was so upset about a $100 check that he wouldn't kiss me goodbye. I literally cried from that second until about 10 minutes before we landed in Mexico. The flight attendants saw me and started giving me free bottles of booze and were so sweet. Which I guess probably wasn't the best thing because I was pretty drunk all that evening. Here's where things go off the rails. I was very drunk. I was on my first ever trip as an adult with two friends who were only too happy to hear me man bash my husband. We were approached by an older man who, probably has done this a few times, and he told us that dinner and drinks are on him for the rest of the night. I was just in the perfect mood to accept. My friends ended up going to bed about 10 or so, and I didn't want the good times to stop. He and I moved to a beach bar where I unloaded everything that I said above. He flat out told me that he would make sure I didn't spend a dime that week and he was happy to show me a good time. I was definitely white girl wasted and telling him way more than I should, but he did not object to walking me back to my room and leaving for the night when I was going to throw up. Fairly early Tuesday he sent me a text, yes on Signal, saying that he had arranged parasailing for the three of us. I was excited but my friends were starting to get a little spidey tingle that something was up. They did go but they said they wouldn't accept anything more from him. We did some girls' stuff that afternoon but I was a little annoyed with them because they wanted to stay in their rooms and sleep, so I ended up going to dinner with this man. I did not drink that night and actually ended up in my own bed fairly early. Again, there was an early morning text from him and this time it was ATVs. I said that I would go but my friends were not. ATVs were okay but I was pretty happy to get back to the resort, but we really drank a lot. In the early evening, he said he had something he really wanted to show me in his room. Everything in my soul was telling me not to go but I went. We were lying face down on his bed looking at his iPad and he got up and all of a sudden I could feel him kissing the back of my legs, pretty close to my swimsuit. I would consider this cheating absolutely, 100%, without question. My brain was racing, and I was in that moment where it physically felt okay, but I was drunk, and I was very afraid to say no because he was so much bigger than I was, and I felt like I had gotten myself into the situation. Somehow, I rationalized that if he was only going to do it to me then I would be okay, but if he asked me to reciprocate in any way, I was going to have a major issue on my hands. I would say that maybe lasted about 5 to 10 minutes, but he only kissed me on top of my clothes and nothing came off. He then rearranged on the bed and started rubbing himself, on my outstretched hand on the bed. All of a sudden it got very real because it made me realize he was expecting me to reciprocate. I told him I had to go. He promised me it wouldn't happen again and said to please stay in the room because he was so drunk that he was worried about choking on his vomit. I told him that I would stay because I was worried about him, but if he made one more advance towards me I would, probably can't say, but it had to do with his eyes, scream as loud as I could and call security. I fell asleep on the other bed. I left in the morning as he was waking up and he was profusely sorry for what had happened. I said I was too drunk and that was the last time I spoke with him. He did send me a Signal message on Saturday that his family had arrived and asked if I wanted to meet them, which literally made me gag, but I never responded. I spent that entire day praying about what I had done. I have never felt as much shame as I had that day. I envisioned my entire life going down the tubes for 5 minutes of pleasure. The next morning after that I told my friends what had happened. They basically told me that I had to come clean with my husband or they were going to tell him for me. I promised I would tell him. If my timeline is right, that was Friday and I looked into booking a flight to come home early, but for some reason it wasn't really possible, so we made the best of it until we left Monday. Again, I cried the entire flight home, nervous as a dog trying to poop a razor blade, knowing that I had to tell my husband of 10 years, boyfriend of 19 years, that I had done something awful. He and the kids picked me up and of course I didn't say anything then. After the kids were plugged in, I told him I had something I had to tell him. He came back at me with, hey, I noticed you didn't spend any money on the trip. Do you have any receipts I can look at to make sure it's not an issue with a credit card? I love my husband, but I have never felt an instant hot poker of hatred towards a person more than I did him in that moment. He didn't kiss me goodbye over a stupid check, he hadn't seemed that upset that we hadn't talked while I was gone, he hadn't even asked how my trip went, and the first thing he wanted to talk about was making sure his books were in order. Update 4, later that day. I am so sorry about the grammar in this post. So as crazy as this has gotten, I just got off the phone with a producer for a relatively famous relationship podcast who wants me and my husband to come on and talk about what the past few weeks have been like. My husband and I have been talking and we did consider it at first. After some consideration, we both have come to the conclusion that not only should we not go on a podcast, we probably need to take this out of the public eye entirely. I know he didn't expect his initial post to blow up like it did, let alone his second. I never expected to get so much traction on my follow-ups. We have gotten so many genuinely thoughtful and helpful comments from people who obviously cared about the lives of two strangers. If we end up staying together, and I'm going to be honest and optimistic and say that I think we will, there are a few of you who had the perfect words at the perfect time. I hope that we have both thanked you personally, but if not, please know that I will be eternally grateful. Some of you gave me some tough love, which was I needed to hear. Some of you gave him some advice about communicating with me and he followed through. Again, a deepest thank you. Obviously, we have a path ahead of us and neither one of us know where it's going to go. We both have agreed to meet with a mediation team tomorrow. He did file separation paperwork last week, so we need to meet with the legal side of the team to figure out how to proceed with that. We have also agreed that we will approach the counseling side with an open mind but with the hopes of reconciling. Things may change, of course, but I am not willing to look down to the movie of our life 20 years from now and say that I didn't fight for someone I truly love, and I know in his heart truly loves me. We had a really nice conversation this afternoon and he said that he isn't so mad at me for what happened in that room, he understands how awful that must have been. He is mad at me because me being so naive, and me being so trusting has gotten me into so many of these situations. I'm lucky I got away with it and it too so long before one finally went bad. He feels like I never listened to him and because I'm a balloon head, trust me it sounds sweeter when he says it than it looks when I type it. He's terrified that there may be a day where he has to tell our kids that I won't be their mom anymore because I trusted someone when I shouldn't have. At 32, I've got a lot of growing up to do. We also talked at great length about my issues, and he is going to start looking to see if he can hire an engineer to take his place at he and my dad's company. It will mean we will lose a source of income, but he'll still be on the board and will still be able to provide direction and expertise, but the day-to-day stuff will be dramatically less. As his biggest fan in the world, I am so glad he's not going to quit flying because I know he loves it and frankly seeing him a flight suit is the sexiest thing in the world. In fact, we have kid number 2 because I got to do a spouse incentive ride when he got checked out in the H60 and seeing him work the controls and talk so confidentially on the radios made my ovaries burst. I would never want to take that away from him, or me, frankly. As a huge missing puzzle piece, I finally got to see the signal messages that my sister-in-law was able to get from the guy in Mexico when she did her pie job. I can say that he didn't exaggerate or lie about anything and therefore there's no difference between his version of events and mine. However, his choice of words were that of a guy who was thinking I was contacting him again because there was a shot. For example, his message about the Wednesday night event says I had such an amazing time with you in my room. Your company was just what I needed in ill will, sick, never forget it so I can see why my husband freaked out. The actual events were that he put his mouth and himself on my body without consent and after he apologized, I stayed to make sure his CPAP mask didn't fill up with vomit. I don't want to minimize anything because I put myself in the position. I'm trying to be light about this. He did offer to take me on a cruise in the Mediterranean in August. My sister-in-law joked that maybe she could pass for me and use the offer of a cruise with a real Miami real estate tycoon as leverage to get her boyfriend to finally propose. I'm hoping that myself and Dumbutt, one of my pet names for my husband, again it sounds sweeter in person than it reads when I type it, can joke about the fact that I got offered a free cruise someday too. I get that some people won't understand our humor, and that's okay. I really hope it comes back someday because it's one of my favorite things about us. Thank you again to those of you who were thoughtful, sincere and even a little direct. You probably saved our marriage. Note, she posted to Reddit another 30 times after this. All remaining posts are by the wife where she gives near daily updates of what is going on. The husband updates his posts to say they are working things out. There are lots of posts to view but this one provided the most info. Update 5. Yesterday the kids and I were just doing normal family stuff and exploring the area since I've never been here before. I was driving and got a call from my sister-in-law and after some telephone tag I finally was able to talk and she said the other man's wife had finally called her back. I guess first there was some understandable confusion because the wife thought my sister-in-law was me but once that was all worked out it came out the wife wanted to talk to me. Of course I didn't want to talk in front of my kids so I got her number, texted and introduced myself and asked if she could talk later. I know this is a lot of details but I want to reiterate that I spent the next few hours as nervous as I could be because never in my life had been part of a hey girl conversation. She texted back and said that yes, it was important we talk. I made sure it was okay with my husband and he was back to our Airbnb relatively early so he took the kids to see Inside Out. He said he was neutral on me talking to her but he said if it was important to me that he would like me to do it sooner rather than later. I probably stared at her number for 30 minutes before I actually pressed call. She answered right away and she was much more pleasant than I thought she would be. We introduced ourselves and made some very awkward small talk but the most interesting thing to come out of that was she's much younger than I thought. I pictured her to be in her 40s or 50s but she's 35. Something about that made it seem like I was talking to a peer which made it somewhat more comfortable. She was still very confused as to why my sister-in-law is involved and I don't know if I did a good job explaining that. She said the reason she has reached out is that she has found some of my pictures on his iPad. I only recall taking one picture with him but he has taken maybe like 10 or 15 of me walking from the beach chairs we were sitting in to get in and out of the water. This made me feel so violated because I had no idea he was doing that. From her perspective there was a picture of me riding an ATV, the selfie shot we had taken on the beach and then the pics of me walking so it looked like he had deleted a bunch of pics. That's why she finally returned my sister-in-law's call. She was very calm, but after explaining the pics, she bluntly asked if I had tried to have sex with her husband, and for some reason that made the conversation realer than real, if that makes sense, and now there was real anger in her voice. I explained to her every detail I've shared here, about how we met and how he was very generous, but that I never once took that he had any sort of romantic feelings towards me. I did say that my friends were a little suspicious of him, but I also said that because I was a late addition to the trip, my expectations were very different than theirs, so I was happy to have some company, and since her husband seemed nice and harmless, I didn't think anything of it. I did tell her that most of the time we were together, we talked about our families at home, and he was very clear that she would be joining him that Saturday, and we had even talked about me meeting her. That's how innocent the whole thing seemed to me. She said when she had asked him who I was from the pics, he said at first he denied everything, and finally when she said his story made no sense, and "It can't believe I forgot this," and she had gotten the call from my sister-in-law, which she initially ignored until she found the pics. Then she demanded he come clean. He told her I had insisted he take me to his room, and I'm going to leave this out because it's really gross, and my impression was that he was bragging to her that younger women want to still perform acts on him. I told her that's not at all what happened and explained my side of the story. She got pretty intense and asked me if my husband knew I went to hotel rooms with strange men. I tried to explain that I'm pretty naive in life and I didn't see anything other than him wanting to show me pics of his car collection. She wanted to know my version of what happened in the room because he had said that I had asked him if I could perform certain acts on him and that he has asked me leave, but I was so drunk I stole his CPAP power cord and wouldn't give it back and then fell asleep on top of it, and he was worried about me making a scene, so he let me sleep it off until the morning. As she was telling me this, I was like, holy, I know a lot of people find my version incredulous. I can't even fathom anyone seeing as his side as even possible. I asked her how much detail she wanted and she said everything, so I told her exactly what I've said here. I was laying down face down on the bed very close to the door with iPad propped up between us. He was kneeling at the opposite side of the bed swiping the pics, and we were at least arm's distance away. He shifted and moved himself more onto the bed, really pressed into my hips, and did what I've described many times now. I said I was so taken aback I didn't know what and don't really know how long that lasted, but he moved again and started running himself through his clothes on my hand. I jumped up and told him I was leaving. I told her about the discussion we had about him throwing up in his CPAP mask and him asking me to stay, and that I agreed, but he had to stay physically away from. I told her about 5 a.m. we both woke up and that was the last time I saw him. I also mentored he had texted me on Saturday asking if I wanted to meet she and her daughter, that I never responded to. After I told her all that, there was a very long pause and then I could hear her sobbing. I said I was so sorry and the call disconnected. Maybe 10 minutes later she called back and said she was sorry she hung up on me. I told her it was no problem. She asked me to tell the story once again, so I did, and I could hear her getting emotional, so I asked her if she wanted to talk later and she composed herself and said no, she wanted to get this over with. Through tears she basically said this wasn't the first time he's done this. She said about 5 years ago he became functionally impotent and since then he's had like a perf switch, her exact words, go off, and he's been caught doing things like accidentally rubbing against women's breasts or peeping down shirts. He was asked to leave those dentists because he kept fondling the hygienist's leg. She said that she had gotten a call that her daughter's teacher was requesting that her daughter change rooms because he had rubbed himself on the teacher's hand while she had it on desk in a way that was too obvious for it to be a mistake. She is also sure that he's taking creep shots of women and girls at places like water parks and pools, but he's very good at hiding them, so that's why it stood out so much that she had seen my pics walking to the water. I told her how incredibly sorry I was and I didn't want to add anything to what already sounded like a stressful time. She wanted to get into the arrangements she had made with him that he be allowed to go to massage parlors so at least he wouldn't get in trouble, but I had to tell her I just didn't want to hear about that. She said my story was the final straw and she had endured enough, but she's really worried because they are deep in debt. I told her it was so confusing because he splashed money around Mexico like he had limitless amounts. She said he just has credit card after credit card and didn't really care about the impact to her or their kid. I said I felt really bad and to get her some sort of independent money I would pay her back directly for all three of our parasailing, the ATV excursion, and make a fair estimate of how much he spent on dinner and drinks for me and my friends and Venmo her the money. She said that was very much appreciated. I really hope she has her own account set up and he doesn't get to it, but I'm not sure. At least I can feel like we're squared up on the money issue. We talked for a little while longer and she said she has really nowhere to go or even know where to start. I got on our laptop and helped her look up attorneys who will meet with her for free, how she can rent an apartment and possible government resources for her and McKinney-Vento information through her daughter's school if worst comes to absolute worst. I told her I'd be happy to stay in touch and help her with, because while her situation is not exactly like I see with my students, I've had more than my fair share of families who've had to flee, are totally homeless, etc. She said she so appreciated that because she had married this guy who is 19 years old, then she is thinking he's fabulously wealthy, and now she is very seriously thinking about moving into a week-to-week hotel with her 7-year-old. I don't have much in common with her, but I think we both share that naive optimism of always taking people at face value. I'm just a lot luckier than she because of my circumstances. I talked with her way longer than husband and kids were at the movie, so they had to go get ice cream, but of course my husband was on pins and needles about how it went, so after kids were put to bed we talked. He's very happy I paid head back, but of course he thinks I've taken on another project when I have so much going on already if this lady really does need my help. I said understood his point, but maybe it's something we need to talk about with our counselor because I can't stand to turn away people in need when I'm able to help. He agreed but made me promise until then, the only help I'll offer her is finding resources, but she has to do all the legwork. I said that was fair. So yeah, that's the update. I owe a couple of you responses to DMs, I promise I'll get to them. This took a long time and kids are getting up, so we need to start our day. Update 6, 10 months later. So here we are, April 13th. I woke up this morning having pretty severe contractions. Only this time they are pretty regular. We are timing them and they are lasting for about 30 seconds and coming every 10 to 15 minutes or so. My OB wants me to head in when they start to happen every 5 minutes. I think we are going to have a baby today.